All right, everybody. So we're starting a new unit, skeletal system. This is going to be a fun one. Okay, so there's some pretty obvious things about the skeletal system. Okay, first of all, whenever you hear of the skeletal system, it's always with osteo. Okay, osteo is Greek for osteon. It means dried up. Your skeletal system, your skeleton is 20% of your body mass, and it is your bones, joints, cartilage, tendons, and ligaments. There are 206 bones in the human body, and each bone is an organ. Okay, so the functions. So this is pretty basic, right? We know that there's support. The bones provide support for the body. It's the body's framework. Everything depends on in standing up on the bones. Otherwise, we'd just be like a little jellyfish laying on the ground. It's protection. So there's bones that form body cavities and protect the organs. For example, your ribs protect your heart and your lungs, and your cranium or your skull protects your brains. Movement. The levers for muscle action is how we move. Ligaments are fibrous bands that connect bone and cartilage. So ligaments go from bone to bone. They connect bone to bone. Tendons connect muscle to bone. And the movement of those tendons and ligaments act as a lever. So when the muscles move, you move. Mineral storage, calcium and phosphate. So calcium is released into the blood when the calcium level drops from the bones. And you need that because it keeps the body at homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is equilibrium. You have to have a good supply of calcium. Calcium is what makes your heart pump and your muscles go. You have to have calcium. It's also used in the endocrine system, and the urinary system helps manage that. So it's an important one. And it's for hematopoiesis, and that's blood cell formation. So there's stem cells in the red bone marrow. So we'll get more into this later, but there's red bone marrow and white bone marrow. Red bone marrow is where the stem cells for red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are. So red marrow is found in your ribs, your pelvis, and your sternum, the flat bones. So those big flat bones have all of this red marrow. And it's also at the end of your humerus and femur, but it's in the lower quantity. And as we get older, it decreases. Okay, so you have your osteocytes. Osteocytes are the cells by which bones are formed. So they are mature cells that produce your bone cells. And there's organic material and inorganic material. So the organic material is 35%, and this is derived from a protein called bone collagen, and it's a very fibrous material. And between these collagenous fibers is a jelly-like material, and that's what gives your bones flexibility. So when you look at a bone, you're going to see that in between there's these fibers, there's this jelly material that helps your bones bend. If your bones didn't bend every time you fell down, you would break something. 65% of it is inorganic material, minerals, salts, and water providing hardness and durability. Okay, so your bones aren't just like this chalky thing that if you take it, you can write on the ground. The bones that we see are usually very, very dried out because they've been out of the body for a long time. But if you look at fresh bones, it's a very different feel. There's two types of, just double check something here. Yeah. There's two types of cells. There's osteoblasts and osteoclasts, and those are the cells that are primarily responsible for reconstruction and growth in our body. We'll get into those a little bit later. Okay, so there's embryonic skeletal, and this initially consists of just collagenous protein fibers, and they are secreted by osteoblast. Wherever you see the word blast, it always means new. Okay, so osteoblasts are what secretes the collagenous protein fibers during our embryonic skeleton. So in an embryo, the skeleton is not hard, it's very, very soft. Then you have cartilage, which is a connective tissue that is secreted in between those fibers. Okay. And during the 8th week of embryonic development, ossification begins, creating bones. Ossification is when you have bone being laid down, so to speak. And that's what makes the bones start to harden. Now, infant bones are soft and pliable. That's why you have what's called a green stick fracture. And a green stick fracture is when an infant or a small child falls like on their hands. Their bone bends in splinters. It doesn't fracture. It kind of looks like if you were to take a branch that isn't, from a branch that's not dead, that's not drying, you bend it, you can see that it doesn't really break, it just bends. That's kind of like what we're talking about. And ossification happens because the mineral deposits that are laid into our bones keep going through our childhood. They keep getting laid down. It's how we grow. You have to have ossification. Let's talk about the structure of the long bone. So the long bone has a long shaft or a diaphysis. So it's a very compact, hard bone. Okay, and it's a cylinder. It's empty in the middle, and that's where bone marrow is. Um, so it's very, very strong and hard, but it's light enough for movement. They can tell actually the kind of life that you've lived by the way your bones look. So when they would dig up, you know, um, in medieval skeletons, they could tell a lot of times who the bowmen were because the bones in their arms were so heavy. Um, and then the epiphysis, which is the extreme, at each extreme of the diaphysis, which is the end of the bone. So you have the shaft, which is the diaphysis, the epiphysis are the ends of the bones. That hollow inside is called the medullary canal, and it's the center of the shaft. And that's what has the bone marrow in. Now, in a regular long bone, it's a yellow marrow containing fat cells, blood vessels, some cells that form white blood cells, but there's no red blood marrow in the beginning, no red marrow in the middle of a bone. It's only at the end. Okay. And then you have the endosteum, which is the lining of the marrow. Remember, endo means inside. So it is the lining of the marrow cavity, and that's what keeps it intact. So the next thing we want to look at is Haversian canals. And these are branch into compact bone, and that's what carries blood vessels that nourish osteocytes, because bones are made out of osteocytes. In their cells, they have to have blood. They have to have nutrients. Anywhere there's a blood vessel, there's a nerve. So you got to see there's nerve through there. That's why it hurts so much to break a bone. Osteocytes make up 90% of your mature bone tissue. There are other kinds of cells that are in there, which we'll talk about, osteoblast, osteoclast, but 90% are mature bone tissue. The spongy bone or the cancellous bone is at the ends of the long bones, and it forms the center of all the other bones. Okay. Um, I think we're going to stop there, and I will get back to you guys in the next video.